Hello, and welcome to Cryptic Web Chronicles. Tonight, we take a look inside what might just be the most dangerous short-term rental in America. A home that its owner claims has been raided by police dozens of times, targeted by cyberstalkers and political extremists, and used in psychological warfare campaigns by anonymous trolls. And yet, it's listed on Airbnb. Is this the deadliest Airbnb in America? This is the story of Patrick Tomlinson, a sci-fi author and so-called comedian turned online spectacle. A man who spent the last several years publicly feuding with trolls, declaring himself the target of an international gang-stalking campaign, and insisting that his home, yes, the very same one he rents out on Airbnb, has been swatted over 50 times. Security footage in Milwaukee's 911 dispatch logs confirm that Patrick was indeed swatted on at least a few occasions. In fact, he's currently suing the city of Milwaukee over these incidents. But the question many are now asking online is this: if over 50 swattings truly occurred at that location, how did Airbnb remain uninvolved? And perhaps more puzzling, how did Patrick continue hosting guests at the property throughout such a volatile situation? The duplex in question isn't some luxury hideaway or charming bungalow. It's old, run down, and there's evidence it's had electrical problems. Many online call it a hovel. That's the official label trolls use as well. It sits on a urban Milwaukee street, backed up by an alley, with decayed siding and a tiny slice of yard that's seen better days. It's not exactly a dream vacation spot, but if you're looking for a place in Milwaukee to curl up in a drunken stupor and question your life choices, it'll do just fine. And yet, it seems to bring in some money, because it's available for rent on Airbnb. Now, let's take a moment to consider the implications of what's being claimed here. Patrick S. Tomlinson, you may remember, has publicly stated, many times over, that he is the victim of a stalking campaign being carried out by criminal terrorists, and that in addition to prank calls and pizza deliveries, his home has been swatted more than 50 times. That's his official number. 53 times he has supposedly been swatted and put into a life-or-death situation, facing an armed police response due to false 911 reports. Incidents where, according to Patrick, armed police officers, sometimes entire SWAT teams, descended on his property. Loud commands, tactical gear, guns drawn, shields deployed, all the terrifying hallmarks of a high-risk law enforcement raid. If Patrick is to be believed, this didn't just happen a few years ago, but has been an ongoing threat to his life, racking up over 50 swattings so far. Combined with alleged bomb threats at hotels and other public venues targeting him, Patrick paints a picture of a campaign of harassment so severe, so relentless, that few people in America could even begin to relate. Now here's where things start to shift into deeply troubling territory. Because while making those claims, while describing himself as the target of one of the most intense and sustained harassment efforts in internet history, Patrick was also quietly operating a short-term rental business out of the very same house. Let that sink in. This wasn't a backup property. This wasn't a second home he could keep separated from the chaos he described. This was the same building. The other half of his duplex, listed on Airbnb, was open for business. Which raises a simple but important question. How? How do you reconcile that? How, in good conscience, do you invite strangers into a home you publicly claim is under siege? Not just adults, either. Families, babies, young children. Couples traveling through Milwaukee with no idea what they're walking into. Vulnerable people who trusted the photos, the reviews, and the promise of a quiet, safe place to stay. Because according to Patrick's own words, this isn't just your average nuisance. He claims he's the victim of coordinated cyberstalking, a years-long campaign involving anonymous trolls, Russian intelligence, and far-right extremists. And he says these people have weaponized the emergency response system against him, falsely reporting hostage situations, threats of violence, and active shooters, just to provoke police raids on his home. So why, knowing all that, would he continue to list it? If it's even half true, then it's possibly the most dangerous short-term rental on the platform, the deadliest Airbnb in America. A property that, at any moment, could be surrounded by cops with rifles drawn, while a mother and her toddler sleep in the next room. At this point, it's a pattern, a documented claim. Patrick himself has posted about these incidents online over and over again for years. Tweets, Facebook rants, even legal filings. He's told every corner of the internet and numerous media outlets that this home is a battleground, that he fears for his safety, that he is one of the most targeted people on the internet. And yet, his home was open for business as an Airbnb. The listing includes no disclaimers, no warnings to guests, no notes in the listing that you might be jolted awake by the sound of police at 3 a.m. Just a smiling welcome to Milwaukee and no cleaning fees. Of course, questions about judgment and responsibility don't begin and end with the Airbnb listing. Critics often point to a 2011 incident, documented in court records, where Patrick was reportedly arrested and charged with making violent threats against his then-wife and their newborn daughter, allegedly threatening to kill them both. As a result, he lost custody and, according to public records, has had little to no meaningful involvement in his daughter's life since. While that incident was over a decade ago, it continues to fuel debate about Patrick's decision-making, especially when it comes to placing others, including families and children, in potentially dangerous situations. Because if his claims about the swattings and cyberstalking are taken at face value, then in my opinion, continuing to host guests in that environment isn't just irresponsible, it's reckless. And if those claims were exaggerated or strategically presented to generate sympathy, the situation becomes something else entirely, a troubling case of someone possibly leveraging fear, danger, and public safety for attention or financial gain. Of course, on forums like Kiwi Farms and the Opie and Anthony forums, it's taken as a given that Patrick exaggerated the number of swatting incidents he's reported. Among those communities, skepticism in Pat isn't just common, it's the default stance. And yet, even by the most conservative estimates, it's undeniable that Patrick has experienced more of these incidents than the average person ever will. What makes the situation especially perplexing is that, despite the risks he's described, he continued to rent out part of his home on Airbnb. That decision has raised eyebrows across the internet and sparked a flood of speculation. Some wonder whether he truly believed his own warnings. Others question how he could justify hosting guests, potentially even families with children, while claiming the property was under frequent threat. It's that contradiction that's kept the controversy and speculation alive, with no clear resolution in sight. There's so many questions unanswered, and I'm afraid the lines have been so blurred at this point, we may never know the truth. But that's all the time we have for tonight, so thank you for watching. This has been Cryptic Web Chronicles. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, and good night.